Hi, I'm Mallory, a composer of music, and over the years I've had a number of people get in touch with me asking for information about some of the pieces that I've written. So I thought I would make a series of short videos about some of my more popular pieces, giving a little bit of background into how they were written. Today I'd like to talk about a piece for Handbells called The Voyage. This is a piece I wrote in 2016 as my entry for a Handbell Musicians of America Area 2 composition contest. This piece is a little bit unusual for me in that usually when I start a piece of music I have some sort of a story I want to tell or some sort of an image or idea that I'm trying to convey. This piece really just started with me playing around with a particular musical scale that I really like that's sometimes called the Lydian dominant scale. The Lydian dominant scale is similar to the much more common major scale, except that it has a raised fourth and a lowered seventh. So using the C major scale as a starting point, that means the notes would be C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B flat, and C. I've always loved the epic sound of that scale. It's also got a connection to the overtone series. I've used that scale in quite a number of my original compositions. So I just came up with a little riff that I liked using the notes of that scale and a melody. And as that came together, I thought, that sounds kind of like the melody you might hear in a film score at the beginning of a movie about people going off on an epic adventure, an epic quest of some sort. So that led me to the title, The Voyage, and kind of drove the concept for the rest of the piece. This piece is in what's called a rondo form, meaning that there's a melody at the beginning, an A section that comes back a number of times as the piece goes along. So it starts off with this melody in the lower bells. At measure 16, it goes with the melody into the higher bells. And then over at measure 27, beginning of the next section of the piece, this is the one time in the piece where I really do use the major scale. It's the only time that you see the F natural happen in the piece. So it's using that same melodic shape as a motif, but using the major scale to give a different sound. When we get to measure 43, that A section melody comes back, again in the lower bells, but with a little bit of a thicker texture to give it a heavier sound. And then when we get to measure 54, it felt like something different needed to happen there. So I brought in the hand chimes to give a little bit of a different texture, a different sound there. And in this section, I'm mostly playing around with a 1 chord to a minor 5 chord. Again, getting into a little bit of music theory. Using your regular major scale, your 1 chord, C major scale, the 1 chord would be C, C, D, E, F, G, the 5 chord would be G. In the regular major scale, both the 1 chord and the 5 chord are major chords. So you end up with this sound. C major chord to the G major chord, sound very common in a lot of music. One thing I like about the Lydian dominant scale is that the 5 chord becomes minor, so you end up with a much more ethereal sort of sound. Again, something that you hear in a lot of film score music. As you can tell, I love a lot of film score music. So my concept is that this portion of the piece is when you're on your journey, on your voyage, and you come across some beautiful vistas and beautiful scenery, and you just pause for a moment to take it all in. Coming into measure 70, it works its way from a C major chord to an E major chord. The one time in the piece that E major chord happens, giving a unique moment in the piece, and that E major chord may sound kind of random, other than I also really like third relationships in music. C, D, E, from a C chord to an E chord. I also use that sound in a lot of my music. So we go from the E chord in major 70 and 71 back to the C major chord in measure 72. The original melody comes back. And then in measure 80, back in the higher bells, although this time with some extra rhythm added with malleted notes. And then at the end, I finish up again with some of those major 1 to minor 5 chord progressions. I was very honored to have this piece chosen as the winner of the Handbell Musicians Area 2 Composition Contest. It was premiered at their 2017 Youth Handbell Festival, and I've heard since then that it's been used at a number of different handbell festivals around the country. It is always such a privilege as a composer when you're able to write a piece of music that is so well received. I've had people get in touch with me asking for options for 4 and 5 octave choirs, since the original version is written just for 2 to 3 octaves. I've also written a set of optional percussion parts since the piece was published, so if you're interested in either of those, you can get in touch with me at my website, ronmallorymusic.com. Enjoy the voyage, and God bless.